Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is Jeremy coming at you once again with Redtired Podcast, and I'm here with Captain Popsicle for breakfast, Jacob Valdez. Good morning, Jacob.
Good morning. It wasn't by choice. It was either this or it was going to go to the trash.
I would have rather thrown it in the trash, being just pure sugar. So you're eating a popsicle for breakfast. The little backstory here is your son opened the popsicle because that's what he wanted for breakfast, and then he decided he didn't want it, so he's about to put it in the trash. So now here you are eating it because you don't want it to go to waste. I can respect the idea that you're not trying to waste money, but it does raise that question. So about a week ago or so, it's been about 8 days, we did a podcast and we were talking about goals for the year, and one of your goals was to not eat fast food. So
this is not fast food.
Follow up. How we doing?
Oh, I'm doing good, actually.
How many times have you eaten fast food?
Actually, none so far.
Well, there you go.
And also on top of that, my wife and I decided not to eat meat until for dinner.
Okay, so meat one time per day.
Yeah, per day.
And I actually don't have a problem with that. I think that's probably a pretty good thing for somebody in your situation to be doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you eating?
For usually yesterday for lunch, we ate some salad with avocado, and the salad wasn't just just a boring old lettuce. It was like good spinach leaves, tomatoes, carrots, cucumbers. So I'm just putting the greens in there now.
So actual dark greens. We're not just talking about iceberg lettuce here.
No.
Okay, good. For those of you listening, iceberg lettuce doesn't have any nutritional value almost
besides water
at all. It's worthless.
Mm-hmm.
But sorry, Alex said?
No, that's a good filler when you're poor.
What? Iceberg lettuce? She's like, I didn't feel like drinking water today, so I think I'll chew it instead. Same thing. So Ricky Gervais just tore Hollywood a new one at the Golden Globes. What do you think? Did you watch this?
Actually, no, and I should have, because a lot of my friends from school were watching it, and because I guess from the industry that I'm getting into, this is pretty much the realm. This is the thing to get as a screenplay writer, director, a producer, even an actor or actress. It's like the pinnacle of all awards to get, because they're the hardest to get. But I didn't get to watch it. I did read a lot of about it. It didn't even wait until the next day. It just hit social media like that.
Oh yeah.
It's before it was even over.
Well, we live in a generation where TiVo is a thing, right? So, you can watch this stuff on your smartphone and you're like, oh, wait a minute. Wait, back that up, rewind. What did he just say? And you can screen record the whole thing, and man, it can be out there in a matter of minutes. We're almost at that point where it's difficult, if not impossible, to actually censor things. And I'm drawing this out a little bit here because you're still eating your popsicle.
It's done.
Yay! So, for those of you who don't know, who might live under a rock, Ricky Gervais, he was the host of the Golden Globes this year, and apparently this is not the first year, but he kept making jokes about how this will be his last year hosting the Golden Globes after he roasted all of Hollywood elites. One of the things that I really enjoyed was he actually made an Epstein didn't kill himself joke. Right there in front of everybody. And then, of course, the chorus of boos that starts coming from all these actors and actresses, all these self-righteous pricks that like to smell their own farts. They're sitting there and they're going like, oh, everybody's all booing. And Ricky says, oh, shut up. We all know he was your friend. Brutal, man. That was brutal. But the best thing that I got was when he started basically laying into these snobs, and he basically said to them, oh, actually, I'm gonna read the direct quote. He said, "Oh, shut up! You're in no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the real world. Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg. So if you win, come up, accept your little award, thank your agent and your God, and then fuck off." Now, there's one part of it that this particular quote left out was don't get political. Ricky Gervais basically told all these Hollywood elite snobs, when you come up here and you get your award, don't go into politics and start lecturing all of us about the political climate and blah, blah, blah. That part was left out. I don't know why, but I guess because it's not a very popular thing according to slate.com. But what do you think? Is it, so we have, and actually I'll go into that a little bit. I want to get your perspective on it.
I think it's great. One of their own, putting them in their place. You know, it's the comedians now that are finally stepping up. And I'm not saying not all of them. You do have your highly liberal comedians that, you know, they just go out on the stage and that's how they make money, is to bash, you know, the conservatives or their views and Trump and just anything Republican. So I'm kind of glad that now some of these comedians are like, all right, this is total BS. You know, Juilliard is not a political school, so you don't know anything.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, and there's a lot of legitimacy to what he said, because if you consider some of these guys have been in Hollywood since, like, take a great example would be Leonardo DiCaprio. He's a big popular guy in Hollywood and blah blah.
Yeah, high environmentalist. You know, all about the climate change. Actually, it's so bad. A lot of people don't want to work with him. Actually, there's a little inside thing that I've learned in school, that he stinks because he only takes a shower once a week. He doesn't use deodorant. He likes to smell just natural as possible because he doesn't like using all these chemicals or anything that harms the planet.
Well, that's crazy, disgusting. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe you should order some of that natural soap from Dr. Squatch. Not a sponsor. But what's funny to me is Leonardo DiCaprio has been in Hollywood for, good God, as long as I've been alive, right? He's just a little bit older.
Gilbert Grape.
Sorry?
Since Gilbert Grape.
Yeah, since eating Gilbert Grape when he played himself.
Yeah.
But
that's a good one.
He's been in Hollywood for that long. It's been forever. And, you know, you have to take into account, like, this guy was on set and he was maybe getting educated while he was doing all this work. So that's not an environment, first of all, that's conducive to learning. The actual learning process can't really take place while you're working, I don't know, 15 hours on set or whatever, however much a child actor is actually allowed to work. There's no way that you can get properly educated on these things while you're trying to film a movie and while you're still. Like,
there's so many rules now with the unions and everything. Like, they can only work so many hours on the set. But, you know, especially for kids now, it's all about education. And if they don't pass the test, they don't go on stage or do whatever they need to do on production set or whatever.
Sure.
So there's so many rules out there, and laws too, you know, just not even just in the state of California, but in the United States in general, you know. And if they're part of the guild, they're even more strict, you know, kind of like the union. So
yeah, unions are garbage, by the way. But so here's one part that I do take a little bit of issue with is I'm a little bit, I don't know all the ins and outs of Hollywood because I'm a normal person and I don't sniff my own farts. But I take a lot of issue with the idea, like, okay, well, you know, they need to make sure that we're still getting a proper education. Okay, fine. Screen Actors Guild decides, like, yeah, you're going to be educated. We need to make sure that you're not an idiot. Well, I can respect that. So, but the problem that I have there is where are you going to find somebody in California that doesn't have that liberal ideological agenda?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're not going to. So they're only educated to the direction that they wish these children to be educated. And thus you've got these morons that grow up and don't wear deodorant and only shower once a week. And they're going to tell us how to live our lives while they're flying around in their own private jets. Sorry, not sorry. Ricky Gervais is 100% correct. These guys don't know anything about the real world, especially if you've been in Hollywood all of your life, whether even if you went in there at a young age, say 20. Well, I'm going to go to California. I'm going to be famous. Okay, fine, go. Do you know anything at 20 years old?
No, nobody does. And even William Durant, if you read some of his books, he even talks about it. We go to college too early.
Oh, really? Yeah, you know what? That's interesting.
We don't at that age. You don't appreciate things that are given to you.
Well, because you're not paying for them yet.
Knowledge. Yeah, and you're not interested at that time. Your brain's not, even if you were interested and your brain's not fully developed or to fully comprehend everything that's being taught, especially if you're being taught properly.
Right.
I'm not saying with an I'm saying without an agenda. You're learning just facts and truth, and not like, oh, I think he did this. No, I don't think. Tell me exactly what happened. You know?
Yeah, because you're referencing the prefrontal cortex. It doesn't officially fully develop till approximately the age of 25.
Yeah.
And we put these kids into colleges at 18
or 19, at the latest. And even then, it's funny you bring that up. But I want to rewind back because you talk about Hollywood. What's great is that the school that I am in is a bunch of veterans now that are out. They're going to film school. They're sharing their ideas. So I can't wait for some of these people that finally get recognized and kind of hit the mainstream when it comes to Hollywood, because it takes a while for you to get picked up and break through, what they call it. So, you're getting all these people that are now broke through, when there was no wartime, there was, really nothing. So it's all about the hippies and, all this anti-war agenda and stuff. Those are the people that are in Hollywood that are making the big decisions. I'm talking about directors, executive producers, the people that have the money now. So I can't wait until later when, these veterans that are going out, utilizing their GI Bill correctly, going and following their dreams. Some of them want to be actors, passions, like the guy who plays in the Star Wars, the main antagonist, he was a former Marine, and now he has a school that helps other veterans in theater arts. So I can't wait until those kind of individuals finally go into Hollywood and kind of shift it back.
You make a good point. And let me actually expand on that one a little bit, because there's another shift that takes place in entertainment in general. Is you'll notice, TV and movies, it's fiction. Everybody knows it's fiction. It's just I want to watch the movie. I don't want to read the book. Okay, fine, whatever. I don't care about that. But you'll notice that there's a trend that takes place when stand-up comedy kind of sets the mood, kind of sets the pace. And we had this specifically when we started talking about the Dave Chappelle thing, where Dave Chappelle was basically telling everybody, you know what, this cancel culture, whatever. I don't even care. Cancel me, mother. Nobody cared. And the critics hated it. But the comedian shifted the country, right? All right. And the same thing happened there was another comedian immediately following that we were talking about.
I think it was Bill Burr.
And because Bill Burr is one of those guys, he's like, dude, I don't give whatever. I'll say what I want to say. And if you don't like it, then whatever.
Turn it off.
Turn it off. And that's his attitude. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
And now we have Ricky Gervais, who's pushing this pendulum back even further towards some kind of a normal mindset, where these Hollywood snobs have to understand, hey, people don't care what you think. They like your movies. They don't even know you. They don't like you. They only follow you because of a certain character or a certain movie or something along those lines that you portrayed once upon a time. And they associate that character with who you really are. And the truth is that the person that you really are is kind of a dirtbag.
Yeah.
You're always trying to lecture all these other people on how to live their lives. So that being said, my point is, when you take in and try to grasp this concept, the people who shift society are the most outlandish comedians. So the people, take it like a Joe Rogan, for example. Dude, he's incredibly offensive. Which I think we need to talk about a little bit deeper today, offense. But you take comedians like him, and he points out the ridiculousness of life in general. I think he's got a bit on the Jenners. And he talks about how ridiculous it is that Bruce Jenner went and had a surgery and got a sex change. And now all of a sudden we're supposed to just pretend that he's not Bruce anymore. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. I never thought about it that way. Yeah.
And people look at that and they absorb it and they're like, yeah, why are we doing it? This is kind of stupid. Like, so, and it's a comedy show. It is. We all joke, we all laugh, but at the same time, the man with the microphone holds the most power. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, to be honest, before I even say that, I think we're giving too much power to these entertainment elites. We're thinking that their opinion matters, and that's unfortunately uneducated. I think it does. Oh, they have power. They're the ones that make choices, and they don't. They're only a fraction. Not even. I don't even think they're a percentage when it comes to voting. A full percent.
No, not really. But it's the people that they affect or infect, if you will.
And it's unfortunate that people listen to them. I take it as a grain of salt. I think they're idiots.
I agree. But at the same time, we're doing it here with Ricky Gervais, where we're actually justifying some of the things that he's saying. But he didn't say anything that was wrong. He was just roasting.
Mm-hmm.
It just happens to turn out that everything that he was saying was factually accurate, factually true.
And I think he's speaking up for the silent majority, finally.
I got to respect that. Now, I know you won't be back to hosting any Golden Globes anytime soon.
No, I don't think so.
But did you see? So one of my favorite, this guy's got, Tom Hanks just became a meme. Okay. Everything that Tom Hanks did in his past, whatever. He's talking to Wilson out there on the beach. Who cares? Nobody cares about that anymore because Tom Hanks just became a meme when he had that look on his face. Did you see the look on his face?
No, I haven't seen it. Yeah,
oh man, he sucked his chin way in, right? And he's just got this look on his face like, oh, like, you could tell he didn't like what he was. Go ahead and look it up real quick.
Okay.
You could tell that he was very dissatisfied with what was being said, but at the same time, the look kind of and this is my take on it. The look kind of expresses I mean, he's not wrong, but I don't really appreciate this. Ricky offended a lot of Hollywood elites, but what he just did was he just made himself more popular with the American people than anybody really ever expected.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to look to Ricky now and they're going to be like, okay, let's get some more of that truth. Can you get another dose of that truth? We like that.
Well, we'll see how it, people will, what's sad is that people forget about this within a week. Our attention span is not there.
I disagree.
Yeah.
I didn't know who Ricky Gervais was until this point. Ricky is actually because he's a comedian, right? And so that's his primary function. He's not really so much a big Hollywood actor, but his primary function is comedy. So he's got these tours, right? Ricky just escalated himself as a big name in comedy. People like me who don't follow anything that has anything to do with Hollywood in general, I don't know who comedians are. My God, I was in my late 30s before I even knew who Joe Rogan was, and he's had a podcast for years.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about anything, but you know what? This know-nothing dude right now knows who Ricky Gervais is. Mm-hmm. And this know-nothing dude right here would actually go and watch a Ricky Gervais show just because of what he said to Hollywood elites. Ricky,
it was funny.
He did a bang-up job, but he did something that was even better. He offended a lot of people, a lot of Hollywood snob people.
Yeah, and I think he picked the right stage for it.
Oh yeah, the national stage at the Golden Globes.
The Golden Globes, yep. Mm-hmm. And I want, it's funny because I'm surprised they even let this air. I wonder if he said, "Hey, as long as you don't, because Kevin Hart, man, 2 tweets and he was done. He got fired before it even aired."
That was one of Ricky's jokes. Dead serious. He was talking about Kevin Hart. He's like, yeah, y'all didn't even want to let Kevin Hart on the stage, and all he did was send some tweets, and here I am.
Yeah, literally, he was 2 tweets away from being on the Golden Globes.
Yeah, Kevin Hart got robbed, but you know what? I don't think that's the thing is, it's like nobody cares if Kevin Hart's the host of some award show in Hollywood, because really, what are these award shows? I know you broke it down earlier and you were kind of trying to talk about, the purpose of these awards and whatnot, but what are they to you and me? Nothing.
Yeah. And even then, I think it's just a pat on the back or, something to boost your esteem.
Yeah. Well, yeah, of course. These guys have a job in Hollywood, and that's to pretend to be somebody else. And whenever somebody pretends to be somebody else better than anybody else, well, then they get this little award that's made out of gold. I don't even know if it's really gold. I don't care. But you get a little Golden Globe or an Oscar or an Emmy or whatever because you did a really good job pretending to be somebody else. Let me put that out in perspective here. Joe the Plumber. He's one of our favorite friends of all time. Remember Joe the Plumber from, I think it was like the Obama and Mitt Romney debates?
Didn't he run for office?
Joe the Plumber?
Yeah.
He might have. He very well may have. But we have idolized Joe the Plumber into almost this status of the average Joe, the average American, right? Imagine, if you will, this is going to sound really stupid. Imagine, if you will, that once a year there's a plumbers convention, the Golden Plunger, if you will. You know, Joe, you did a really great job this year installing those toilets. We're pretty impressed with your performance, and so we're going to go ahead and nominate you for a Golden Plunger this year. Good luck. How stupid does that sound?
Mm-hmm.
It sounds really
stupid. Any blue-collar job.
Yeah, because we don't celebrate these kinds of things. It's not worth celebrating. You're just doing a job. You know what your reward is for doing a job? Your wages. You get paid. Why is Hollywood any different? Oh, it's not. Except for they have a little platform because there's so many people that'll follow them and so many people that, will sniff their butts, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got this platform and these guys are up there and they're patting each other on the back, talking about how great you did in this movie, pretending to be a person that you weren't. What world are we living in where you could do the same thing and celebrate something like plumbers and electricians? Why isn't there a Golden Briefcase Award for the greatest lawyer? Why don't politicians
Golden Globes
do it?
Actually, I'm just doing some research right now. They've been under scrutiny for a while for certain things. You know, NBC actually banned them from 68 to 74.
Who's they?
NBC.
Banned who?
The Golden Globes for airing on their network.
Really?
Yeah, because they said that they kind of fooled the public and how they announced their awards. So actors knew they already won before even arriving. And so it wasn't a real entertainment. It was just fooling the public, basically. And I guess back then that was a big thing. Also, for designing awards, to make sure it is already appointed to who the winner is. So they'll change the title, like best tourist musical. And if you know a movie that was a musical about tourists, then you know who's the winner. And stuff like that. So they'll change the title of the award to make sure that certain film will win.
So it's a category handoff kind of thing.
Yep. Mm-hmm. They kind of stopped it in the 80s, but since 44 to 80s, basically, it's been corrupted.
So doesn't that kind of spell out how ridiculous this idea is in the first place?
Yeah.
I don't know that there's any other entity in the world that does such ridiculous things on a national scale. You're going to go over there and you're going to flaunt how good of a job you did. It sounds ridiculous.
You brought up a good point. Like, do you see China doing this or I see China kind of doing this, but do you see like Russia? Are they countries that we should be taking seriously? Like Iran, Iraq?
I don't know that Iran actually has any kind of films that I'd want to watch in the first place, to be honest with you.
But that's your opinion. But I'm talking about for their citizens, they do like their own films. And I'm like, this is kind of, don't get me wrong, I love the arts, but I think sometimes we take it to much of a higher pedestal than it should be.
Oh, I agree 100%. I don't pick on people for what they do. Mm-hmm. If you're making money as an artist, that's amazing. That's awesome. But yeah. I saw something not too long ago on Facebook. Somebody was talking about this girl. She was selling her art. It was local art. It was beautiful art. She did a great job. She could paint portraits and, whatever it was that you wanted painted, she could do it. And for, a relatively fair price. But she was selling some random stuff that she did. Okay. There's two sides to this. One side of it is somebody was saying, this person pour their heart and their soul and they're putting their education and everything onto the canvas. So that's what you're buying. You're buying the education. You're buying the emotion that's tied to it. You're buying the heart and soul of the painting. You're buying, it's not just paint on canvas, right?
I call that BS.
That's one side of it. That's one person's perspective. But I went to school for this. I'm educated in this. That's what you're buying. Well, but then I look at the other side of it is like, that's what it's worth to you. That's fair because you put your heart and your soul into it, and that's your work and that's your labor, and everybody loves the labor that they do. That's fair. But to me, I don't give a flip about art. You'd care less. Any kind of art museums on the world, if they disappeared tomorrow, I would never know it. Pablo Picasso, all of his art, all of his paintings, everything could disappear tomorrow. It wouldn't. I don't care. Right. So for somebody like me, again, art being subjective, I'm looking at this painting and I'm going like, I wouldn't give you $20 for it. It's not worth the canvas it's painted on. Sorry. Not sorry. So it's a subjective thing, right? So why is the arts in general, talking about like Hollywood filmmaking, whatnot, why is that any different? Why is it not any different for what we're doing right now?
Yeah.
It's subjective. There's going to be a lot of people that would listen to this podcast and they'd be like, man, these guys are idiots. Well, that's fine. Cool. That's your choice. You don't have to listen. Nobody's forcing you to. But there's going to be a lot of people that are going to agree with us.
Oh, yeah.
So art, subjective. I don't know where I was going with that.
No. I do understand what you're saying and it's unfortunate. Again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about the Hollywood elites. It takes the right individual to like something to gather a following, and it goes the same way for artists. My wife will always tell me, that person could be not a good artist, but they're famous and their art's worth multi-million dollars is because they did it at the right time. And there's one person that opinion matters for some god reason, I don't know why, buys it for $2 million. And then from there, the rest of his art now value from $20 jumps up to $1 million, and that's crazy.
Well, yeah, that's the idea behind the supply and demand, but what's unfortunate is with the art side of things, when you're painting up all these paintings and you're posting them online, like this painting's worth $500. No, it's not.
My favorite is Banksy so far.
Banksy,
the British artist. Yeah, he's funny. Like what he did when I don't know if you heard of, but this was a big thing last year. Is that someone found one of his artworks and tried to auction it off to make millions because his art is never for sale because it's usually on the streets and it's hard to steal. But someone found a painting of his that he did. It was kind of a rendition of the red balloon. And as soon as the mallet hit to sell for $7 million, once that mallet hits its final, something activated I don't know if some people don't know what he looks like. So I don't know if he was in the stands or whatnot, but as soon as the mallet hit, it went down and the frame it was hidden as it was shredder and it shredded the painting.
What?
And it was and it was basically his hit towards the ultra elite and like your opinion doesn't matter. And as soon as the mallet hit, it just shredded.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. He's kind of like the host of the Golden Globes, but in the art world. He's just talking. He just hates everybody.
So
the guy had to pay $7 million for shredded art because it was final.
I'm not mad. I mean, I would if I was that guy, yeah, I'd be mad. But so let's move into the main topic here, because this is kind of Ricky inspired, if you will, because what Ricky did was he offended a lot of people, a lot of snobby people, but nevertheless, he still offended people. Now, it's a real simple idea, but it doesn't take much to get offended. I can say something right now, like Jeremy, your hairline's receding a little bit more today. I know. I'm well aware of it.
But you won't take offense of it.
No, I got to take offense to it.
Yeah, and the actual definition of offense, so listeners out there don't really know the definition. I'm not insulting anyone's intelligence, but to become angry or upset by something that another person has said or done and then to be offended by something. So it could be visual, it could be verbal, but whatever makes you upset from another person.
Yeah, it's an action. It's something that you literally have to choose to be offended.
Now, do you think now today, because again, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. The education and your brain is not fully developed. So what I think what happens, especially now with these millennials, you know, and I'm talking about the early, I don't even know what generation would be from 19 to 25 or even 18 to 25, the people that, you know, that take to heart what actors say and so on and so forth. Do you think they easily jump into emotion than to be like, you know what, let's go into facts. Let's do some literature here. Let's just start reading and gaining some knowledge. You know, like sometimes me and you have healthy debates, but I never get offended in what you say, and I know vice versa. So unfortunately, do you think people just go the easy way out and you get emotional, like just toss up their furniture or whatever and just get angry about it?
Well, so that's good that you put it that way, because I actually wanted to explore it kind of like that. So with the way that you're describing it, we're talking about an emotional response, right?
Yeah, which is usually people get offended easily, so they jump into the emotional response, like, and it sometimes even vice versa when it comes to like agreeing with someone, they jump into the emotional, you know, state first, like celebrating and so on and so forth, instead of being like, you know what, wait a second, before I cheer on. You know, one thing I learned in the military is don't believe it until you see it. Not see it, but kind of like until I see the action or whatever, depending on what we're talking about. So,
kind of like the actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the emotional response, though, that's tied to feeling, right? You know, and I say this all the time. I mean, I've said it to my wife, which that goes over like a lead balloon. But I've always said, you know, it doesn't matter how you feel in the moment. Take the feel out of it and think about what we're doing rationally, right? So you've got, here's how this works, this breakdown of being offended. You've got two natural built-in defenses to this, if you will. You've got your intelligence quotient, which is your IQ, which is how smart you are. And then you've got your emotional quotient, which is your EQ. And that, whether you like it or not, overrides your intelligence quotient. So that's kind of scary, right? So you think about that, it's like, wait a minute, my emotional, like if I don't have control of my emotions, my IQ doesn't matter. All of a sudden you kind of start understanding some deeper concepts about how, like, so I did choose to be offended because I couldn't keep control of my emotions. And therefore, action, reaction. Somebody insulted me, I punched the person. Action, reaction. You couldn't keep control of your emotions simply because you were offended. What? Are you seeing how this kind of draws out a little bit of a pattern here?
And I also think that now it's getting so bad, I think we're getting offended by even the wrong things.
Yeah. Take the Hollywood snobs. I know they're going to be offended over what Ricky said. It doesn't matter now because the guy's just cemented his career with a bunch of people who probably would have never gone and seen him before. They want to hear other people's perspectives. And what Ricky did was he acted in a way that it could have been offensive, but he took the high road in doing so because he hurled some insults, but he wasn't lying. He was being perfectly honest with his perspectives. So it's still a high road. Yeah, but he also removed all the emotion from the things he was saying. He kept saying, I don't care. I don't care. Throughout the whole monologue, he's like, yeah, you're upset with me. I don't care. You know why he doesn't care? Because he's not emotionally invested and emotionally tied into the actions of his words.
Or even ideas of others.
Yeah, it's Hollywood. Everybody knows that Hollywood is weird and corrupt and snobby and what have you. So there's that emotion.
I don't trust actors, you know, just because they get paid and they go to school to learn how to cry on screen. So, you know, if they're crying about their beliefs, I think it's just all an act or a facade. Now, here's a question for you, Jeremy, real quick. Do you think that, you know, with all this over offensive and over offending others and people, you know, choosing to go the emotional route, do you think it it slows down our country when it comes to progress in all aspects?
I think that it could affect true progress, but what we understand to be progress isn't really progress. It's actually regressive. So you take the left, for example. They always call themselves progressive. We're always looking to move forward, but it's actually regressive. It actually breaks down the family unit in favor of, say, the overall population, and removes.
So you're talking about like the stifle freedom of expression type thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I just wanted to make sure. But what I'm saying is, because of that and taking advantage of that, do you think it's slowing down our progress as a country?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I was trying to say, because true progress doesn't look like progressivism. Progressivism is actually regressive because it takes away from the individual in favor of the hive mentality. Okay. So yes, short answer is of course it completely destroys the individualism. Would you rather your son grow up to conform to society or grow up to be an individual who changes the world?
Yeah, individual.
Right. Of course. And that's what Ayn Rand was always writing about. She was always talking about, in 1984 as well, by George Orwell. They were talking about the dangers of societal norms versus the individual, because it's the individual who ruffles the feathers. It's the individual who doesn't pander to the emotional side of the argument and rather looks at it with logic and fact. Right? So yeah, of course it's detrimental.
So it's basically like, you think like it's crazy, and like George Orwell, what you're talking about, it's crazy that you see kind of like a book like that coming to fruition, a fiction.
Yeah, if you've even heard about George Orwell's 1984, you can kind of pinpoint all this stuff as it goes on, because what happens when the hive mind takes effect? It affects everybody else, right? So
and it's like a virus that attacks anyone who doesn't agree.
Yeah, it is, and that's liberalism and leftism. Described to a T. It's effectively a cult, where, and cult may be taking it too far. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it is effectively comparing it like a cult, because you have these like-minded individuals that they get together in the metropolitan areas, and then their ideology has to be the ideology that you conform to. You're not allowed to have the individual thought. You're not allowed to think differently, or you're racist, or you're you hate gays, or you hate Jews, or you hate blacks, or there's all the, obviously you're a racist. You probably voted for Trump, didn't you? Right? So the hive mind, eventually it infects the free thinker, the independent thinker, the guy who could potentially change the world. And then he just becomes another number. Right? So that's kind of also part of the problem that we have with where everybody's like, well, we need to get rid of the electoral college. I'm like, what? Are you crazy? And infect the rest of the world with the thinking of a few? No, that doesn't make any sense. Same thing, another danger that we have, and I know this is way off topic with offense, but another danger that we have is where states are now saying, well, they're just going to allocate all of their electoral college votes to whoever the popular vote winner is. Well, that actually cancels out a lot of people's votes. Nobody thinks about stuff like that. And now, see, that's something that could be truly offensive, but it doesn't incite the emotional response. I'm just sitting over here going like, this is ridiculous. So how do you in your mind, in your world, how do you navigate the emotional response when somebody initially comes at you to be offensive, or somebody comes at you and says, Jacob, you're stupid? What do you do?
Well, first I take into, like, it depends on the subject. So if someone just comes out and blatantly says I'm stupid without knowing me, I just disregard it. But if we're talking about like a serious, like, if me and you had a debate and you just didn't agree with me and saying, I know you would never do this, but say you're stupid on a serious issue, then I'd be like, okay, maybe I am saying something wrong. Let me go back and retreat and let me read something. Maybe he's seen something I don't, and maybe change my point of view. But I never take into emotion, especially now, my age, what I know, everything that I've read, all the knowledge I've intake, things I've learned from my mentors. I take everything that I've learned to heart. So maybe we'll talk about something that I don't know too much, and I'm here trying to give you my opinion, and you just blatantly say I'm stupid. I'm not going to get emotional about it, because I'm like, okay, well, maybe I am at this point. Let me figure something out here. Let me read what he's talking about.
To be fair, I wouldn't do that. Now I might
know, but no, I'm using it as an example.
Yeah. And in reference to that, I may actually stop and say, now, wait. The idea that you just espoused is really stupid. That's emotionally, that could incite offense. But in reality, it's not inciting any kind of offense. What it's really doing is it's saying, like, I don't think you've really thought through this entire process, right? So I could say, Jacob, that idea that you just espoused, that's stupid.
And now, listeners, I am human. There will be, and the thing is, it's as children, in our primal brain, because a lot of people don't know this, our brain and our DNA is millions of years old, because it carries on from our ancestors. So usually if you say something offensive, like again, I know you wouldn't do this, Jeremy, if you say, oh, you're stupid, real quick, my emotions will spike. But it's me and my other side of the brain, the one that's more evolved, needs to be like, well, wait a second, Jacob, think about this real quick, and it takes split seconds. It's not like I'm going to sit there for a minute and digest this. No, it's like, because we're human, Jeremy. Like, I know if I say, well, Jeremy, that idea is stupid, even though you say, like, I'm more educated, for a second, not even that, your emotion is going to try to take over. And then it's your intelligent part is going to have to bring it back down and be like, you know what, maybe that idea is, let me read something real quick. Cause maybe I haven't read that book, or, maybe I haven't read that article, or finding, or whatever the case may be, so the human and our primal side of our instincts as human beings will automatically jump into emotion. And unfortunately, that's what people do now these days. They just follow that primal emotional state and not get into the logical side and the knowledge side and be like, well, and it's unfortunate. Even professors, the people that we should be learning the right ideas from, jump into emotion and forget about it. Like, how many female professors and even male professors were just dropped down their knees and started crying because Hillary lost. Instead of doing that, just ignore that, drop it down for a second and rethink, okay, how's this going to affect me? I will be thinking like a chess player. What kind of moves do I need to make now?
You touched on a very, very important point, because survival, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I forgot that was one of my points, was the survival brain kicks in whenever you're insulted. You know that? Because brain, because look, we've developed over time, right? Biologically, we're meant to survive. That's our main objective, survival. That's the most important thing that we do, is keep existing. So our brains over time they've been developed to start looking for threats. They look for the negative. They look for things that maybe potentially harm us, right? But at some point, we started taking offense as one of those threats. We started taking words as threats because, we haven't really had to face hard times. Let's face facts. The 1900s was a really, really fairly easy time to be alive. In the late 1900s, it was much easier to be alive. We've got an amazing generation. We've got information at our fingertips, right? So that survival instinct has kind of waned off over time. We don't really know what true survival actually entails unless, you've been in our shoes, where you've been in combat or something like that, where
or you grew up in the wilderness,
or maybe you grew up in an abusive home. That's a possibility. You actually understand what true survival is all about. But the good vast majority of Americans, they don't actually know what it means to have to survive. They've never had to grow their own crops in their own backyard or kill their dog so that they could eat one more meal or anything like that. We don't live in a time like that. So we have this survival instinct built into us, but when anything even remotely detrimental goes against our thoughts or our wishes or our emotions or anything like that, survival brain It kicks on. And all of a sudden we go into defense mode and we just start thinking about like, well, my ideas are stupid. You know what? Well, so's your haircut. Your haircut's stupid. Or you're too short, or you're too fat, or you're too tall. And then insults start going out because the best defense is a good offense. And so we go back on the offense because we've been offended. So we hurl offense back. And that's the primal instinct. That's the primal brain. That's the very basic understanding of staying alive is defend, then offend. So if you recognize that,
gangs do it every day,
all the time. And if you recognize that
you're on my block,
and if you're 25 years old and your prefrontal cortex is fully developed, then you can probably grasp this concept a little bit easier than say like a 10-year-old. But you take this and you understand this, that the entire process of being offended actually takes you relying on your emotions.
Man, I just brought up, again, this shows you the age difference. You know how you always have those young gangsters, and if they're not killed, they're in prison. But what's the one thing they do when they go into prison? They gain that knowledge, and by the time they're out, they're our age, their 30s, and then from there, they go into the knowledge side and not the emotional side. And it's kind of crazy. So it kind of tells you, like, maybe we're not getting educated long enough. And even then, even with our country today, not getting educated the right way either. We're always, unfortunately, teachers are always going to throw their opinions into what the matters, even with history. Unfortunately, even though there's facts, they always want to throw their beliefs and why it happened.
I would definitely agree that we are not educated well. I would also very deeply agree that the idea that teachers are, generally, I just have this chip on my shoulder with teachers because I don't think that every teacher is a good teacher. That idea is stupid. There it is. Some teacher is going to be offended, but the idea itself is very stupid. There's no way that every teacher can be a good moral judge, a good moral character.
No, there's not. Seriously, I'm telling you from the inside. No.
And also the school structures. Yes, I would argue that the school structures don't actually give kids everything that they need. You get to dabble, and there are certain things that kids do need to understand. Yes, math is extremely important in this culture. You have to know how to balance a checkbook, and that should be something that's taught at the high school level, yet I don't know that it is. Now, I do know that there's a statistic, or not a statistic, but there's a fact that I've discovered not too long ago that Dave Ramsey's courses are actually taught at a high school level in somewhere around 35% of all public schools. So that's a good thing that some students are actually getting a real education on how to handle money.
Yeah. Now, do you think there should be some sort of class or some sort of study? Not before we even design the class, do you think there should be some kind of study given or taken by a certain amount of public schools or any school in general to kind of see, do we need classes to kind of control this emotional reaction and be taught, like, instead of, dumping into feeling, go into more of an educated, I know there's debate and all this, and that kind of goes into it, but you think there should be more emphasis into this?
Absolutely. Because what we do is we've taken so many different extracurricular activities and put them into the school, like home economics. Like, who didn't want to take a home economics course, right? You get to cook macaroni and cheese in the middle of school and then go eat lunch. Are you
hang out with
me?
all the ladies?
Yeah, and hang out. And I took a sewing class when I was in high school for an extracurricular activity because I wanted to know how to sew, right? Things like that. I made a quilt because I wanted to know how it worked. It was just curiosity really is all it was, but I took it because it was easy credit and I learned something tangible, something of value. Now, if I would have went in and learned trigonometry, there's not one time in my life I've ever had to use trigonometry. Does that surprise you?
Not unless you're an architect or an astronaut. I don't think it's, and I understand, basically for your field.
Yeah.
Now, do you think we should be field oriented when it comes to education?
I think there needs to be a probably in ninth grade, one of the very first classes that anybody should take is we need to start talking about career planning. Like, who do you want to be? What do you want to do? And granted, I know that a 15-year-old kid doesn't understand who they want to be, what they want to do. I want to be a YouTuber. Okay, great. You're going to you do that in your spare time, let's have a backup plan, right? Let's think about these things. Let's actually get some control over our lives and try to draw a bigger picture here and imagine, who do you want to be in case YouTube falls through, buddy? You know, come on, let's think about these things. And here we go again. I'm running the risk of offending somebody who wants to be a YouTuber, but that is not a life goal. That's not a life plan that works out long term, unless it's a wild ride as it is. But you have to have a starting point. Every single person who's on YouTube today, do you think that was their first thing? Like, oh yeah, I woke up one day and I started doing YouTube and all this money showed up.
No, they probably had jobs to pay for the internet so they can be on YouTube.
Yeah, they had to invest in all the equipment the hardware, the software. There's all these things that you have to invest into. So you have to work a job somewhere along the line. And a lot of YouTubers will tell you that, like, what I used to do. I used to work in finance. Good. That's a good, solid job. Trying to educate other people. There's stuff to be done, but we don't teach these kids at a young age to pick a career field. We don't talk about this stuff around the dinner table anymore. I do. Okay. But I talk to my 9-year-old and my 11-year-old. I say all the time, like, we got to thought, like, if you're going to college, there's a reason you're going to go to college. You're going to have a plan. You're going to have a goal. Otherwise, I'm not going to send you to college. I'm not going to waste it.
I think here's the solution when it comes to being offensive and offended and kind of avoiding that primal instinct in us is critical thinking. I think we lack that of a lot here in America, is the skills of critical thinking. And I appreciate what you do to your daughters. And I'm probably when my son reaches that age, and even now, I think I kind of give him that kind of, as much as I can to a 3-year-old, is like, all right, let's start getting into critical thinking. Now, if you do this, what this kind of reaction do you get out of it and stuff like that. So yeah, it's great kind of working on the process and all that, man. It just, this country, unfortunately, is not going to be. Now, do you think it needs healing from all this offensive and offending others?
I think the right answer, in order to heal, you first have to be broken. Okay. You can't heal from being whole. So to answer that, there has to be a little bit of truth to the concept that something is broken. And I don't believe America as a whole is broken. I think that probably there's about a 50-50 split where, if you want to go again down the political lines, there's a split. But a lot of people have this idea that, we're broken. And the truth is no, we're not broken. Like, we're not perfect, but we're not broken. So if there's something that's broken, it's probably more likely, like these people that seek out socialism, really they're missing something else. Everybody has a desire and a drive and a want to be important. They want to be someone. They want to be something. They want their life to matter. That's part of that developed brain. Once you get past all the survival stuff, there's a desire to be important, right? So for all these guys that seek out like these socialist ideologies and like, everybody needs to be equal and blah, blah, blah. What they're saying is I acknowledge that there's very important people in the world and they have a lot more than I do. And I want that too. But they're also saying I'm too lazy to go get it, or I'm not smart enough to go get it. Therefore, somebody bring it to me. Okay. So in order to satisfy that feeling, that deep need and that deep desire for the self-righteous or try, just not even self-right, that's probably not the right word, but just a desire to be needed, to be wanted, to be important, to satisfy all of that, you have to put on the shelf the idea of being offended. Because if you're going to be important, somebody is going to be offended by you. Shrug it off, laugh it off. Who cares?
Yeah, you're right.
You have the right to be offended, but it's a huge time waster.
Get educated.
Yeah. There's no excuse. There is Look, you want to make documentaries, right? We've talked about this. We've talked about making documentaries together and throwing them up on YouTube. And so now you're pursuing a deeper understanding for making documentaries. I've got skills and abilities and whatnot for editing and post-process and all that good stuff.
It's funny you brought that up. It's the reason why, because I want to prevent the offensive. You know, I don't want to not get educated, make a documentary or what I think is a good documentary. I go and they're like, oh, this is garbage. Oh, it hurt my feelings. Yeah. No, first I'm going to get educated, figuring out all the tools and everything that I need to learn first. And then from there, at least when I polish something and they say something is garbage, I'm like, okay, then it's not your taste. Let me go somewhere else.
Yeah. And you can look for constructive criticism all over the place. And that's the thing is if you're constructively criticizing somebody, then, or rather, cancel that. Let me look at it from the reverse side. So if you're being constructively criticized, somebody is taking the time and the energy to pour into you, then you don't have being offended shouldn't even be an option. Somebody is taking the time to teach you something that they may know something about, and they're criticizing your work, but they're doing it in a positive manner so that you can get better, and you're offended by that, then failure is going to be your middle name. See, you and I, if we're going to make some documentaries, which that's kind of part of the goal, in time, something might be good. But I promise you this, our first one's going to suck.
Oh, yeah.
You know why? Because we don't know the process. That's why you're in school. That's why I'm sharpening all of my abilities on the audio, on the video side, and we do the podcast and all this stuff is because we're building up to something better. And if somebody is going to come along and critique us, great. Maybe there's something I can learn from it. I don't have time to be offended if I want to be better.
Yep. I don't.
Man, is that beautiful or what?
Yeah.
If I want to be good at something, why be offended? Somebody, oh man, pour into somebody today. Give it.
Mm-hmm. You know what else will help? You know what else could help?
Do I?
Yeah, I see that grin.
Some freaking push-ups.
Till next time, ladies and gentlemen. See you later.